Good afternoon. How are you? Well, Thomas Jefferson says our temperature's 80 degrees, humidity's 22%, and the winds are 3.9 miles an hour. And I can feel a little wind, so I guess that's true. I was in Washington, D.C. today. I had a meeting, and I also met with my dentist, who does not fit in the Steve Martin. I think that was the fellow who had the most enduring representation of a dentist who really enjoyed his work. But my doctor is not of that school, and he did well by me. But I have this slightly swollen and stuff like that. It's amazing to me that we invite people to beat the hell out of us for a constructive reason, and then we recover from the beating afterwards. I'm sure I'm not the only patient who thinks that way. But I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to share with you. And when we look at Trump, one of the things we remember about him is his series of shows in which the most enjoyable part for him was to say you're fired and then defame the person in various ways, not giving them any chance to speak back. And that's a model for him ever since, I think. And he wants to fire Lisa Cook, who's on the Federal Reserve. And he wants to fire her because what he hopes to do is to change the constituency on the Federal Reserve so that he can have the interest rates reduced. Now, politicians like to do that, and that's why it's important that the Federal Reserve is independent of politicians. Because Trump's theory is, and it's been shared in the past by other presidents, the most spectacular historic references to Lyndon Baines Johnson leaning very heavily on the Federal Reserve to reduce rates. So why does any president want to reduce rates? Because if you reduce rates, people feel they have spending power because there's an effect in the economy, and they go out and they buy things, and they seem to have more income. And this works for a while, and then it doesn't. And in our current case, even without doing that, we have higher tariffs that are going to create inflation for sure, because the prices are going to increase, and people are going to have to find that or not. So what Trump wants is going to lead to lower growth and, ironically enough, raise interest rates and cause inflation. And we're going to be spending more and getting less. And the cost of cheap money comes with a higher price. The thing that's interesting to me is, since this goes bad over time, why would you do it so far in advance of the midterm elections? And I think one of the reasons is Trump figures if he can give gifts to the public, they may not think about the other things he's doing wrong. So he's doing something wrong to help him get by the other things he's gotten wrong, Epstein being one of those, obviously. And a cabinet that is increasingly, visibly unable to perform the functions assigned. And it's not like we didn't know about it beforehand. So, and we've already had signs that 30-year bonds were costing more. And if Trump has his way, and you have a savings account with an interest that you hope will grow, it won't. Because that's going to be one of the effects. And mortgage costs, ironically, will go up. So this is bad business for the individual, for the corporation. But Trump also thinks I'll be able to do two things. If the interest rates go down, then the national debt will be cheaper to pay off. So you get it. It's like everything else. There's a con involved, or Trump wouldn't be involved in it. Now let's turn to the church shooting for a minute or two. I don't want to add anything to what I said yesterday. I subscribe to what I said yesterday. Mostly, those of us on the Dirt Road Gang seem to agree, at least the comments that I saw. And I very much enjoy that communion with you. Nobody has to respond, but there have been some terrific personal accounts that have matched up with these issues. And for myself, and maybe you as well, when I took the pandemic seriously, particularly given Holly's immunosuppression because of her lungs, we've been very careful about staying away from people, and we both enjoy people, so that's difficult. And while what we do online is not as good as being able to sit together and talk about something, that makes a difference. So anyhow, thanks for writing. No one has to write who doesn't feel it, and I try to at least acknowledge it, and sometimes I get into it and make some long responses myself. So on the church shootings, I've listened to people talk, and I have observed that people take the opposite view, and they say, what else would you expect from a transgender but that he would go and shoot up a school? But my question is different, and I focused on this one item supposedly found in his notes, in which there's like a knife put into a church. And I think that's revelatory, as some might say. I think it makes me want someone to ask the question of his mom, who is comfortable with him changing his name to fit his identity. So the appearance I have is she supported him. Now, she's also active in that church. So my question is, was he bullied for being transgender? And maybe not, but the fact that he's got a mixture of other things going on when we're trying to find motivations, I think that's an important question. And we avoid it. And I've even had some people state it differently. Oh, he's a white man. Well, he's a white woman. And I said he several times, but it's a she, so excuse me. I need to train myself as well as encourage others to do better than I've just done. So, when we're looking for causes for violence, yes, guns, get rid of them. Look out for alerts, but also consider what we're encouraging in our own society. We're encouraging people to be this way to individuals when we live in this context. So I don't want to revisit everything I said yesterday, but it doesn't surprise me that politicians want to talk about everything except what's in the center of the room that affect general and specific outcomes. And in Robin's case, she might never have felt suicide was the only way out. She may not have ever thought of what may be a reprisal for how she was treated in that community, even as her mother was involved in that church community. So that's one thought I have. No one's discussing that because we exclude things, we self-censor. We don't really have freedom of expression if we're not considering the whole picture. Now, in the last 24, 48 hours, there have been discussions about Trump's health. And I frankly don't give a damn about his health. I think probably karma will take care of his health in whatever way is appropriate. But what I am concerned about is the succession. So I don't know if you're going to be reassured or not, but the answer is no worries. Vice President Vance says he's ready to be president. So when Trump, well, you know, it's such a sick group skells. When I was a kid, they called people skells, right? It fits this group. In so many ways, there's almost no series of adjectives, apology to Hemingway, no set of adjectives that's sufficient for who they are. The acts do tell us a lot, though. And the acts don't require anything but verbs and nouns. And these worthless individuals don't deserve our trust nor our obedience, and it's up to us to fight back. We can't let this go on. And then there's also another question, which is that involves science in America. You know, science, knowledge, based on analysis, theses, hypotheses, looking for patterns, coming up with rules that are repeated by other, sometimes inventors, and by ourselves. But what we have, and we have it in abundance, which leads me to believe that we're at very high risk because there's so many things that could fail because of the rounds of incompetence we have in all these various locations. So we have what Carl Sagan called pseudoscience, which is a dangerous imitation of science. We must, all our politicians, our hosts, our journalists, have got to distinguish between facts and opinion. Not RFK, the father, Jr., should be fired, as his pseudoscience will kill those who believe him, for withholding the kind of advice that is worthy of an agency, CDC, that focuses on science. That says something to us. And I'd like to make a couple of observations, having been in DC today. And the first thing I noticed, and again, it's August, and the town shuts down when its principal attraction, Congress, is not there. But so the streets where I was in Northwest DC were, well, there were very few people on the streets. They looked comfortable. The temperature was such that it was comfortable to be out. I had to walk between two different dentist offices because one prepared a flipper which conceals the fact there's a hole in my mouth, and then to have the surgery and then be released. And I thought, now I didn't see a single soldier. I saw one native police car, meaning, you know, a real police car, one that existed in DC before Trump had his experiment with martial law. And what I suspect is, you know, we also see people saying seriously and joking that the armed people, the National Guard and all those, are found closer to Union Station. Now, those who know Washington, D.C. know that some of the problems that occur are in the southeast section. I was in the northwest section, northeast as well. So I'm assuming if they're out there doing anything, that's where they are. That's an interesting choice. Now, what is their real mission? I think it's multiple. I think the mission is to, on the one hand, actually imperfectly, incompetently, without any experience, to arrest people for what they believe are crimes. And I think there have been probably some contempt of cop crimes, meaning somebody says, well, what authority do you have to talk to me or tell me who I am or ask, you know. So I think we have a bunch of those. And then we have the hurling sandwich that the U.S. attorney in D.C. a questionable individual to begin with. Pirro is prepared to go after people on behalf of the Injustice Committee. So what I wonder is if the force of troops in Washington, D.C. is not only not up to the function, not only unauthorized to do it because there is no emergency, but also they have focused on certain communities, and in the southeast, I would guess, perhaps the northeast, and making questionable arrests is reflected by those that are being dismissed by the court, and the more serious ones that have been resisted by the grand jury, which is an unusual event. So, I'm sorry, I should wrap this up, and forgive me if I've gone on a little bit. I do have a little pain medication in me, so if I've repeated myself, please forgive me. It won't be the first time I've repeated myself, but I apologize. The reaction we must have is to resist these shenanigans, these attacks on our republic. We still have the massive memory of who we are as a people, we the people. And we know what's right and just. And Trump's rush to become a dictator does not allow for the planning that some other dictators had, which advanced their ability to control a nation state. Hitler worked for many years and was, give the devil his due, an evil genius. Trump is evil, but he's not much of a genius. Still, when no one pushes back, evil can win. And the resistance we see at the various levels to Trump, and especially now, are encouraging, because I think Trump's at a point where he's weak physically, he's weak psychologically, and in terms of right and wrong, he's also weak there. Hiya.
Come on, Storm. Come on.
It's cute. So that's what I have to say today, and thanks for your tolerance of my recovery from my visit to the to the dentist. And I say goodbye to you from my cathedral of trees. All the best. Bye-bye.